Oh right, I'm Nick Seymour. I live at Wensleydale, which is 35 k's from Gisborne, a place called Whangarā up the Waimoko Road. And I've been on Wensleydale since 1962. My grandfather purchased this property here in 1912, and he used it as a runoff for the main block, which is Mangoni, some 6 miles away. The property had 12 paddocks and a few holding paddocks as well, but the main paddocks weren't grazed well, they weren't in good condition, so we had a real challenge when we came here. In the 80s I thought, well, perhaps we should look at these gullies a little bit more, try and make some money out of what we were trying to achieve. The 70s were fairly good years for farming, but the 80s were terrible. We had lots of dry years, sheep prices were poor and everything was there, so that's where farm forestry sort of kicked in for me. Belonged to the local branch from the early 70s, and we had started having minibus trips to Rotorua and Taihape, and a group of us would go over there. And when you see what people are doing in Bay of Plenty, like Jeff Brand, you just realise that there's so much potential. On his property, he was planting his hills and keeping the flats, and by reversing that on the hill country here, we could take out the lower producing country, which was in the gullies, and farm the hills, which we have done successfully. Those trees we're looking at out here are now 16, 17 years old, and they've all been pruned to 6.5 metres in 2 lifts. Can we just look at those two paddocks across there where the willows and poplars are? Those are very similar to a lot of our land, and they've been well planted in the waterways where they get little guts where the water runs, and their roots just tie everything together, which is amazing. Both the blocks that I've just harvested, the added value of them was stock shelter after shearing. We would shear our sheep, bring them down, put them in the trees, open the gate the next day. They could freewheel in or out, and I never lost a night's sleep. They were absolutely fantastic for lambing as well. We'd pop a few ewes in there, and they would come in and go out, and if it blew up in a southeasterly, which we get, they'd just go and have the shelter. Fantastic arrangement there. It's a real added value. By fitting in with the farm management of each property, it doesn't take a lot of stock numbers out of the equation. It actually helped stock from being caught and bogged in these areas, and you didn't lose a lot of stock units. You actually gained stock units like we have here. I had 6,200 stock units here before I planted 140 hectares, and I still ended up with 5,500 stock units after it's planted. So the loss is not great on low fertility soils if you plant them in trees. And the benefit is that over the years you'll get some money, up to 20,000 to 30,000 per hectare, which is greater than you can get annually on an annual basis from your livestock. On a farm woodlot on small areas, you have to have them pretty close to the road. The roading costs are huge, so you don't want to have any more roading costs than you have to. Close to the road, easy access for trucks, and also you need to have good quality trees to make it worthwhile to harvest, and we've done a good job here, I think. We've selected our trees, we've got them up, pruned, and they're sort of ready to go. And quality always pays, like your livestock. These trees are Panus radiata, planted in 1987. They were agroforestry blocks, so they're 8 to 10 metres apart, as you can see, in rows. It's the low fertility part of our paddock. It still gives us good access, and better access than we ever had before, because it now makes it a laneway for the stock. The stock can still go in there, they can still lamb in there, they can still go in there after shearing and they've got protection. The difference between trees on that side of the fence and this side of the fence and livestock is that you can quit livestock tomorrow, but these trees, you've got 5 years from the year 25 on, maybe up to 35, you've got to decide when you want to harvest them. The idea is being harvest ready is quite good because they take measurements of the height and the diameter and they get onto a computer program and they can grow the trees on the computer, technically. So you know what's growing in your forest so that you can make a good prediction of when you want to harvest. But you have to be harvest ready to get a gang to do it on a small woodlot. So it's all about a bit of planning and looking into the future and saying, am I going to make $600 or $700 a hectare over the next 30 years in here, or am I going to make 150 to 300 in the livestock patch per year? You have an outlay of money at the start and an outlay of money to prune them up to 8.5 metres like these trees, and you've got to wait. But it's worth waiting for if you've got a number of blocks, like 5, and you harvest every 5 years and go around and replant as you go. It makes so much sense to have another income coming from your land, especially the low fertility land that is most liable to move. So it's soil retainment, which you've got here, and you've got an income in the future. When we started the woodlot plantings in 1976, I was about 34 years old. So I think that was probably younger than some, but not really. You should plant earlier if you can, because we have reaped the rewards of those trees. This is all part of the succession plan. We have leased the land, so we get an income from the land. We live in our own home, because that's part of the deal until we want to go to town. We get income from our trees every 5 years as we harvest. We have a forestry company, Wensleydale Forestry Company, that has which is a family company that has the 130 hectares out the back, and that will be part for my children or grandchildren. The reason of one of the leasing is that I haven't got a son that wants to come here, but I have a grandson who's keen, so we're waiting for him. He may have the same opportunity that I had when I was 21 to be able to come and work on this property. So next year we will be celebrating 100 years of it being in the Seymour family. Not that if Seymour has lived there all the time, but I've been there, will be 50 years next year, and my grandfather started off in 1912 to 1926. So my father was killed in the war, unfortunately, and so was an uncle. So I was the only Seymour grandson that came through. So I was given the opportunity to come to Wensleydale. It hasn't been without costs, of course. As you know, we had to borrow a lot of money to develop this property, but I think we've done it in a way that we can continue farming it for a long period of time. The other thing is that Farm Forestry, as a group of people, is a wonderful organisation. They're all positive. They give their advice freely. They're interested in what you're doing, what they're doing. It's amazing the type of people that are in this group. I think the Brands and the Blakeleys and the Bay of Plenty have outstanding properties that who are looking after their land so well that they are real role models to New Zealand, and I think we should really acknowledge that. The combination of farm forestry or woodlots and farming and forestry, it's a great option to have for sustainability of staying on your land, and I'm sure with the trees and the replanting and the harvesting out the back, and the farming, we will be around for a lot longer than some other people.